Hello, good evening. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on News Nation. Lunch with the National Guard. Vice President J.D. Vance making a stop at Union Station as the administration steps up its crackdown on crime in the nation's capital.
Look, we don't have to live like this. We do not have to allow our cities to be taken over by violence and by disorder and by chaos. You can actually do stuff.
And in one state, will it be from the cornfields to the Clink? The former head of DHS with us tonight on the new idea in Nebraska that could rival Alligator Alcatraz. Also tonight, and down in the South, Texas takes a big step toward redrawing its political maps. What Barack Obama just said in the last 15 minutes, what he also told donors about Gavin Newsom's next move. Plus, could you say this is history in the making? President Trump's new plan for the Smithsonian museums and the pushback that he is facing tonight. We'll get into all of that over the course of the hour, but first tonight, here from The Hill, a lunch break with a message, you could say. This one actually happened right across the street from us, probably, about 150 yards or so over my shoulder. Here in Washington, D.C. this afternoon. The vice president, you see him there, J.D. Vance. You also see the defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, one of the president's top advisors, Stephen Miller, heading to Shake Shack in Union Station, hand out some cheeseburgers, eat lunch with the National Guard. The visit comes as President Trump escalates his fight on D.C. crime. Protesters shouting at the vice president and the defense secretary as they walked into the building. Just some of the sights and sounds as we begin tonight with our Hannah Brandt, who was alongside the vice president today, just feet away, Hannah, and asking him about the administration's next move.
Yeah, Blake, that's right. I didn't quite get a cheeseburger, but I was indeed there. And you can see all of these troops standing here behind me, the Humvees. They've been stationed here for the past couple of days. That was the reason Vice President J.D. Vance was here. He was inside that building, grabbing burgers with those troops, thanking them for being here. In the past couple of days, we've seen hundreds of National Guard troops flow into D.C., coming from states like South Carolina, Tennessee, Ohio, West Virginia, all here to patrol D.C. streets as part of President Trump's effort to use federal resources to crack down on D.C. crime. Now, Vice President Vance, Defense Secretary Hegseth, they made the case it's working. They argue they are bringing down crime rates here in the nation's capital. But some people say it's unnecessary. They believe it's a waste of resources, and they're questioning whether the troops are really being used most effectively. Now, I asked Vice President Vance why troops are stationed places like here at Union Station and on the National Mall instead of areas in D.C. that are statistically more high crime places. Take a listen to what he told me.
If you've ever been to Union Station in the last few years with your family, you know that crime is actually extremely high right here in Union Station. You have vagrants, you have drug addicts, you have the chronically homeless. I think Union Station is a great example of what's possible when you actually have the political willpower to bring law and order and common decency back to the public spaces of the United States of America.
So not everyone is a fan of these efforts, though. I asked some of the tourists visiting D.C. as they were coming out of Union Station what it felt like to see this federal presence here. Some of them told me it was jarring and really seemed like a waste of resources, Blake.
Hannah, I see that obviously the tank there behind you. Clearly the administration feels like this is a winner, though, given that they sent the vice president, sent the defense secretary out there this afternoon.
Yeah, that's what they're saying, and they're really emphasizing that this is going to last as long as it takes. They say D.C. should be a place everyone should feel safe to visit. That's what they're trying to do. But there is some pushback that we're seeing from Democrats who point out that crime rates in D.C. were already at a 30-year low before this federal response. And Democratic mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, has also pushed back as well. She says, look, city leaders are cooperating. We're going to listen to the president's executive order. But she says she doesn't really think the troops need to be here. Listen to what she said.
I don't think the National Guard should be used for law enforcement. They have to be used on their, on mission-specific items that benefit the nation. I don't think you have an armed militia in the nation's capital.
Now, there's debate over the D.C. crime numbers. D.C. police say they are at really low rates, but President Trump has cast some doubt on that, and the Department of Justice has launched an investigation to see if D.C. officials falsified some of that data to make it seem like crime was lower. Blake?
Our Hannah Brandt live tonight, just down the road from us, really across the street. Hannah, thank you. So this isn't the first town that's had the National Guard and troops deployed at the administration's directed. You'll remember this. Back in June, the administration deployed the National Guard to Los Angeles as protests raged there over immigration. California then sued the administration over the deployment, calling it overreach. The president, however, repeatedly saying it was necessary.
If we didn't go to Los Angeles to help this incompetent governor and a mayor that doesn't know what the hell she's doing, if we didn't go to Los Angeles, you wouldn't have a big part of it burned down. The other part of it would have burned down, too.
Going to hear from Congressman Republican Mike Karadopoulos in a moment, but first to the Attorney General there in the state of California, Rob Banta. The state has filed 39 lawsuits against the Trump administration, and the AG back with us once again here on the Hill. Thanks for being with us, sir, tonight. Appreciate it. You're on that coast. We'll get to that in a second, but the president's clearly executing here his playbook on crime and immigration, and we've seen the numbers, we've seen the stats from the administration here over the last week. The number of arrests, they say the percentages are down. Is what they're doing here from a law enforcement perspective working?
Absolutely not. I mean, J.D. Vance and Trump have a very difficult relationship with the facts. In D.C., they're at a 30-year low when it comes to violent crime, down 35% in just the last 2 years. Meanwhile, Mississippi has the highest homicide rate in the nation as of 2022. Louisiana, Alabama, second and third. If you really want to help tackle crime, provide lawful assistance and support and focus and resources to those states. They're the ones struggling with. And absolutely in LA, the deployment of the National Guard, 4,000 National Guards people, 700 Marines was so disrespectful to the patriot.
So murders in this town did rise and has dropped in the past 2 years. Just for our audience here on NewsNation and those listening to us on Sirius XM, you mentioned the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth. He said this today, and I want to get your reaction on the other side.
The National Guard, the Defense Department, is proud to be standing with you and the President in ensuring we have a safe capital that is beautiful, that residents can come visit. We're committed to this mission, just like the one at the southern border and in Los Angeles.
He said they're proud of the mission, the National Guard. Do you have any reason to assume otherwise?
I mean, they might be proud of the National Guard doing absolutely nothing except for violating the law and the Posse Comitatus Act by their deployment there. They were so disrespected. They didn't have places to sleep. They didn't have proper food. They were standing around at federal buildings when there was nothing to protect. They were going out on missions when the military's own risk assessment was that there was no risk. And they shouldn't have done it. And we're in trial right now, waiting an order where we have argued that they violated a key law of our nation that's been in existence since late 1800s, the Posse.
So what happens, sir, if the president decides to go broader with this and maybe move into your state again on not for immigration, but under the umbrella of crime and public safety? Because here's what he said earlier this month.
You look at Chicago, how bad it is. You look at Los Angeles, how bad it is. We have other cities that are very bad. New York has a problem. And then you have, of course, Baltimore and Oakland. We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this. And this will go further.
This will go further. He name-checked Oakland and L.A., as you heard there. Mr. Attorney General, if, and it's an if, but if that were to happen in your state, your response would be what?
Well, first, his statements are very on brand. If Trump was judged on how blatantly and brazenly, how consistently and frequently he broke the law and the Constitution, he'd be the most successful president in the history of the United States.
But I want to know what you would do, sir.
Yeah, let me tell you that. The short of it, we go to court, we stop him. Absolute, complete, transparent, blatant, brazen violation of the law. The Posse Comitatus Act says you cannot use military to engage in civilian law enforcement on American soil, period, full stop. Tackling crime is the very definition of civilian law enforcement. The military would be involved in detentions, arrests, searches, and seizures in clear violation. So he's saying he will break the law. But that's consistent for him. He's broken it 39 times. That's how many times we sued him in 30 weeks. And he's saying he'll do it more. And we plan to go to court and block him and stop him, as we've done 90% of the times when restraining orders and injunctions have been ordered by the court.
We'll see what happens. He is Rob Bonta. He is the Attorney General there in the state of California, with us tonight here on the Hill. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Want to get perspective from the other side of the aisle. Mike Herodopoulos is a Republican from the state of Florida, with me now here on the Hill. Congressman, nice to see you again. As always, your response to that would be?
Well, there's one simple reason why people leave California. High crime rates. That's the reason why I leave California, leave states like New York and Chicago. High crime rates,
Some
high
might
tax
also
rates.
say taxes, too.
Another reason why you should vote Republican. But the idea is that the president wants law and order. It's the basic foundation of government. Protect your life, liberty, and property. He lives out in California. Have him visit D.C. at night. You go into the metro, you feel unsafe. You walk across town before the troops came in, you had the homeless all over the place. You smell the skunk all the time. There's all types of problems here. And it was time that people finally stood up and said, we're going to obey the laws. And when I'll tell you also, I'm a little frustrated by it. The police officers arrest a lot of these people. And guess what? A very small percentage actually go to jail for gun crimes. They need to not only enforce the law in the streets, but make sure in the courts these people get put in jail when they break the law.
Here's the thing. The president, if he wants to extend this past 30 days, needs the help of Congress. You're a member of Congress. Republicans control Congress. And to be frank, you guys have basically given the president everything that he has wanted, right? How long are you willing to let him go? Does 30 turn into 60 to 90 to 120 and so on?
Well, I hope this is a clear message for the city council that when a person has a gun crime and a judge here in D.C., a person has a gun crime, they say they're gun control, put them in jail. The latest number we just saw between 2018 and 2020, 5,500 people caught with guns, 1% went to jail. In every other part of the country, they actually go to jail. D.C. has a problem because they won't truly enforce the law. If I'm a police officer in D.C., I'm frustrated because I arrest the same person over and over again. I see 13 and 14-year-olds carjacking. That's the most likely age of it happening. And the courts don't put them away.
So there are governors who are allowing or are letting the National Guard troops from their states go forward. West Virginia, South Carolina, Ohio, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, all red states, obviously, right? I didn't say Florida there. Is the Florida governor making a mistake? Is Ron DeSantis making a mistake not sending National Guard?
Well, I'm sure if they asked, we'd send the Guard. Look, this is a nation city. It should be a safe haven for tourists to come by. I literally drove here from the Capitol building, and you saw all these protesters, and you and I both know these are paid protesters.
Well, so there's a protest going on in front of our building, and it's been going on for quite some time.
And they're paid
And
protesters.
I don't know if some of those folks were
And you think about, again, also Washington, D.C., of course, the locality, 90% of them voted Democrat. It's the most Democrat city in the country. But that said, I think the people of D.C. deserve law and order, and people who abide by the law shouldn't be living in fear every single day.
Last question for you. Do you believe that these National Guard troops should be armed?
Well, of course they are, because they're protecting the public. And I think their presence alone are keeping the bad guys away. But I beg that the judges here in D.C. will actually prosecute those people who commit violent crimes. They're not doing it today. It's essential they do that.
Congressman Herodopoulos, thanks for being with
Great
us.
to see you.
Again, you heard from the other side, Rob Bonta, the Attorney General there out in the state of California. A little bit what we do here. You hear from both sides. Still to come. You've probably heard of this, Alligator, Alcatraz. Well, now is there the Cornhusker Clink?
My goal is not to build hundreds of thousands of beds. My goal is to get people out of this country that are here illegally.
Where the immigration crackdown is heading toward next, plus drawing the lines, the big political story today. Down in the Lone Star State, the very latest in Texas as they redraw the maps, and within the past half hour or so, Barack Obama weighing in on what should happen. And is the Smithsonian woke? What the president is now saying. I thank you for being with us tonight. We're back on the other side of the break, 4 minutes away. I'm Blake Berman. See you then. Well, the Trump administration is pressing forward with its efforts to open up immigration detention centers all across the country, with America's heartland now becoming a focus as well. Back in June, for example, NewsNation got an exclusive look at a worksite immigration raid that caught 70 illegal immigrants in Omaha, Nebraska. The administration's most recent announcement, the Cornhusker Clink. You see it there. The facility will add 280 beds to a site in McCook, Nebraska, which is almost 300 miles southwest of Omaha. DHS saying this was made possible because of the One Big Beautiful Bill, which was passed into law earlier this year, provides funding for an additional 80,000 beds in detention centers. Specifically, this new location will house criminal illegal aliens. Leading up to this, we've seen a series of new facilities announced all across the country, 2 in Florida, 1 in Indiana, 1 in Texas, and now Nebraska. With me now, Chad Wolf. You might remember him as the former acting head of the Department of Homeland Security. Back with us again here on the Hill. Chad, thanks for the time. Nice to see you. I'm looking, we just showed the map and we showed the names. Alligator, Alcatraz, Deportation Depot, Speedway Slammer, Lone Star Lockup, Cornhusker Clink. Some of that sounds like marketing, obviously, right? And I guess you're going to tell me this is sound policy. What's the mix here?
Well, look, I acknowledge these may all be funny names, but this is actually a serious problem that the Trump administration is trying to get its arms around. And so if you want to remove individuals from the country, remember, we have over 10 to 12 million folks come into this country illegally under the Biden administration. And if you're serious about immigration enforcement and you want to remove individuals, well, you need beds to do that. You need detention facilities in order to put them in order to remove them. And so they're reaching out to governors and to a variety of other folks to help them find facilities so that they have the bed capacity to remove individuals and actually to effectuate the law.
I'm looking here at, we just showed the map, Florida, Indiana, Texas, Nebraska, obviously 4 red states. There's 27 in total that have Republican governors. So I guess it leads to the question, are we going to see this in every Republican-led state?
Well, you certainly could, but again, I would go back in time, and there are detention facilities in every state almost extensively across the country. Now, a lot of those haven't had the publicity that we see now under the Trump 2.0 term, as I say. But there have been detention facilities run by state and local law enforcement, run by private individuals and private groups across the country. So having detention space in the heartland or on the coast or in Florida and elsewhere is nothing new. Having governors really involved, that is something new that we're seeing this time around.
Chad, I flew over Alligator, Alcatraz the other day. I was flying into Florida, and we went west to east, and I looked out the window, and there it was right underneath me, and I saw the runway, right? You see a bunch of the white site tents and then the runway. And you mentioned that the beds are needed, but I'm wondering if the runways are as well, if the administration wants to use these as deportation sites.
Well, that's just exactly what they are. Again, detention facilities in and of themselves just to house illegal aliens is not the goal. The goal is actually to detain individuals to effectuate a removal. And so when they're co-locating these facilities next to runways, that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to drive efficiencies so that when you detain individuals, you can remove them. The vast majority, almost exclusively, those that are in ICE detention are here illegally, don't have a legal right to be here, and are removable. And so that's exactly what they're trying to do, is to pair a lot of these facilities up with the infrastructure, such as airframes and runways, to remove these individuals back to their home countries.
Chad Wolf, former DHS secretary in the first Trump administration, with us tonight here on the Hill. Chad, always appreciate the time. Thank you, sir. There is, I am told, some breaking news out of the state of Texas, the capital there, Austin. A live look there, looks beautiful, also looks hot here in August. But the news is this. The state, the Republicans there voting to pass in the House new redistricting maps. We are taking you live to Texas. On the other side, Joe Kay, Chris Steyerwalt, Mick Mulvaney, Chris Cillizza with me as the news develops. 6:30 here in Washington, 5:30 out in Austin, Texas tonight, and a live look at the state capitol there, where the state's Republicans have just advanced a measure to adopt newly redrawn congressional maps. The new maps will give Republicans an edge in that state in 2026, potentially adding 5 more congressional seats that, if you just sort of mapped it all out, no pun intended, would then go for the GOP. And it sent ripple effects across the political spectrum, no matter where you live. For example, in California, Gavin Newsom has now pledged to fight back, calling for a special election to redraw his state's maps to open more seats for Democrats there. Now, states usually carve up their maps at the turn of the decade. There's the decade, you get the census, and then they draw the stuff. But now other states across the country, both red and blue, are opening the door to redistricting because of all this. Could have big implications for the next year's elections there in the midterms. Chris Stirewalt, Mick Mulvaney, Chris Cillizza to join me in a moment. But first, to the bottom right of the Brady boxes, and our Joe K here with what just happened. Joe, they just, I guess, made it official in the Texas Senate moments ago.
Yeah, like literally a couple of moments ago. So the vote, after all day of debate and all of that, it passed 88 to 52, as was expected. They finally had a quorum. The Democrats who'd been gone finally showed up again today. So it passed. So the bottom line is this. There are 5 new congressional seats that lean Republican. Republicans think that in 2026, they now have a better chance to increase their delegation from 25 to 30 Republicans from Texas. That's not a guarantee. But over in California, as you mentioned, Gavin Newsom also vowing to fight back. Their state legislature is working through this process right now, too. This week, NewsNation, our colleague Jackie Coppell got to ask him a question today, Governor Gavin Newsom, basically asking why did he choose this route of doing the legislature, but then also putting it on the ballot for voters rather than trying to just do it the Texas way. Apparently, he had a couple of different options. This is what he said about that decision.
We believe in the fundamental democratic principles. We want to do it in a democratic way. So it's the most transparent way. And I think it's the best approach. And I think it requires, if we're going to fight fire with fire.
So here's the big thing to watch, Blake, is for Texas, this is done now. Legislature, that's it. If California does the same thing in their legislature, their battle really is just beginning because they're now going to need to do the sell job to voters. That's going to be tough.
I said Texas Senate. I obviously meant Texas House. Talk to me about the bathroom.
So what
happened in the bathroom today, Joe K?
So one of the Texas state representatives, all of the Democrats, were not allowed to leave the House chamber without a police escort. Only could go to the bathroom and the House floor. That's it. So Nicole Collier, one of the more high-profile ones, did a Zoom call with several high-profile Democrats. And where would she go? She couldn't do it from the floor. She went to the bathroom in a stall and was Zooming with hundreds of people in DNC. And there was a point where somebody came in and said something to her, and she said, I'm being told I'm committing a felony by doing this in the bathroom, so I got to leave. I will say the bathrooms in the state capitol in Austin look very nice. They look much nicer based on that Zoom angle than what we got at the Capitol.
All right, Joe K. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Back with me now, Chris Stirewalt, Mick Mulvaney, and Chris Cillizza. Gentlemen, hello to you all. Thank you for being here. I guess from the race to the bottom, Chris, in one way, to the race to the toilet, that's where they are with all of this.
I'd gone all day and I didn't know that about, and now I'm depressed, right? I had gone all day. I had not heard about the person live streaming. I guess I shouldn't say live streaming, but whatever it was from the commode in the Texas state capitol. And now I know, and we're all dumber for it.
We are all dumber for it. All right. So talk to me about what this all means, not just in Texas, because we know Chris, but nationally now. I mean, look, I was looking at the numbers today. There are 22 districts that lean one way or another, 18 districts, give or take, that are toss-ups. Let's call it 36 or so. How much of what happens in Texas affects that?
The cockamamie-ness of the determinalism here, where I'm listening to Republicans say they definitely have 5 seats, Democrats saying they definitely have 5 seats in California. Here's the deal. It is the climate, the national climate, will be determinative of how the midterm election goes. If Donald Trump has a 39% job approval rating, it doesn't matter how Texas redraws its maps, the Republicans are going to get spanked. Conversely, if Donald Trump has a 48% job approval rating, California Democrats are going to have a big problem because they're going to nudge themselves into a bunch of districts. So I get the back and forth. I see how it engaged and enlivened Democrats. I see how this could blow up on Republicans. I see it all, but I would just remind everybody that in the end, midterm elections are a referendum on the party in power, and that's what this one will be too.
Mick, Republicans now are looking at Indiana, Missouri, and Florida. Democrats, for example, looking at Illinois and Maryland. If you're for this in Texas, you got to be for this in California. Or if you're for this in California, you got to be for this in Texas, right? Or else you're just being blatantly partisan, and that's just the reality. But I wonder how far this ping pong goes.
Well, the ping pong started a long time ago. Go take a look at a map of Illinois. Go take a look at a map of Maryland. I hear what you're saying, that they're going to look at their maps. They've already done this. The California delegation is 52 people, the congressional delegation. 43 of them are Democrat. This is the state that Donald Trump got between 35 and 40%. The state has been gerrymandered for a long time. Many of the large blue states are. Even if Texas does what they say they're going to do, and even if they win all these seats they say they're going to win, it's going to be 30-8. In Texas. That's 43-9 in California. So look, I welcome this discussion because Republicans have been saying this has been going on for a long time. Are we good with it? Absolutely. It's the reason we're doing it.
Chris, this was all blessed today by Barack Obama. He spoke to donors last night. He said, I believe that Gavin Newsom's approach is a responsible approach. He said this is going to be responsible. We're not going to completely maximize it. And then Obama, the former president, took to social media about, 45 minutes ago and gave an official statement here. Now that he has blessed this for Democrats, in a sense, how far does that party take it?
I mean, it helps certainly Gavin Newsom. I honestly think it's kind of a semi-big bet by a guy who we know wants to run for president in 2028 to say, all right, we're going to put this in front of voters. Voters voted for the independent commission that this is going to replace with 61% of the vote in 2010. The independent commission is still popular. Gavin Newsom's going to say, okay, we got to do this because of Trump. Well, okay, now you have Barack Obama. I think that'll help, and it's California. But if you put that map back up, Blake, Mick is right. Like, look at the states, first of all. Ohio and Florida, big states. Indiana and Missouri, you're probably only going to get one more Republican district. Ohio and Florida, you could get more. New York and New Jersey, it is against the state constitution to redraw lines in the middle of the decade. You can change that. And then Mick's point, look, Illinois and Maryland are pretty well gerrymandered already. I mean, I guess you could squeeze a seat out of there, but I just think if this winds up being full-on war, Republicans, if we're just doing pure political calculation, Republicans will gain. There's just more seats that they can gain. So I don't know what you do if you're Democrats. I don't think you can just lie down and not do anything. But if it does go tit for tat all the way across the country, and they try to maximize gains, Republicans are gonna win here.
Mick, is that part of the calculus, you think?
I don't think so. Don't ever assume there's a plan. I think Texas is what Texas wants to do, but I don't think there's some master, puppet master behind the curtain saying, well, we're going to do this here and there. This is
you don't think Trump's doing that? You don't think he wants to go stay?
He's in front of the curtain. He's in front of the curtain. He is not behind the curtain.
Yeah. There's a lot of states that are going to look at it. There's no question, but I don't think everybody said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We'll do Texas, and then when California overreacts, then we have a great excuse to do Ohio and Florida. No, that's not how it works.
Steyerwalt, last word.
Expand the size of the House of Representatives. We have a preposterously small House of Representatives. We should have about at least a 50% increase in the number of representatives. Makes gerrymandering less important because it makes each district less important. And we need to not have districts where members of Congress represent 900,000 people. So just do that, and it'll be cool.
Chris Cillizza, thank you, sir, for joining us. Mick Mulvaney from our Conch Republic Bureau, appreciate you. Chris Steyerwalt with me on the other side of the break. Thanks, gentlemen. Have a good one. Still to come tonight here on The Hill. Rewriting history, or is it emphasizing America's brightness? Why the president is now talking about the Smithsonian. Next.
Bill O'Reilly on Cuomo.
I have to tell the truth.
America's favorite sparring duo with TV's liveliest, most honest debate.
That's an opinion, not a fact.
Tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on NewsNation. News for all Americans.
All right, so of the many opponents that President Trump has taken on since running for president again in 2024, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, to eventually now talking about Zohran Mamdani, Gavin Newsom. How many people had the Smithsonian Institute on their bingo card? And yet the collection of 21 museums have found their way into President Trump's sights. Trump declaring war against the Smithsonian's, quote, woke ideologies, pledging to revamp the museum's exhibits to spotlight American success and exceptionalism. The president posting to social media, in part, quote, the Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. He goes on to say, we have the hottest country in the world, and we want people to talk about it, including in our museums. So is it patriotism or rewriting history? Is it a museum's responsibility to spotlight a bright future? Or is that not what history is? Full panel here with me now. Bill McGinley, former Trump White House cabinet secretary. She is the national political reporter for The Hill. Julia Manchester. Chris Stirewalt, back with me, host of The Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, and pulling double duty here, Lindsey Granger. She is co-host of Rising on The Hill. Hello to you all.
Hello.
Thanks for being here. I'm going to start with you, Bill, because you know Trump fairly well. What's he doing here?
Look, I think what he's trying to do is, number one, prep for the 250th anniversary of the United States. And I think one of the things that he wants to do is acknowledge our history, all of its warts and everything, but he really does want to focus on what makes this country great. Why is it the shining city on the hill? And why do so many people want to come here? It's because it is the best country that on the planet Earth right now.
Does he want to, as you put it, acknowledge the warts? Because he's suggesting there in that post, no, look, move past.
He doesn't want to deny history. He's not looking to deny history. He's looking to focus on what makes America great. Why is this such an exceptional country that really is the beacon for the world, for freedom and everything else? And I think that's what the president is trying to focus on. He doesn't want these institutions trying to tear down the country and focus on everything bad. It needs to look at the good side as well.
I mean, bad is part of our history, and this country
Couldn't
has
agree more.
refused to deal with slavery properly, and the National Museum of African American History and Culture has done a great job of actually walking you through what that looks like to go from terrible trauma to resilience at the highest level. But to comb over quickly and go through exhibits quickly of all the bad stuff that happened to me is not a realistic ask from the president. And it's a far cry from what he said in 2017 when he won office the first time. He did his own tour of the museum and said, quote, this is a meaningful reminder of, quote, the unbreakable American spirit. Another quote, he's deeply proud about what he saw and would spend all day. So this is kind of alarming to me. And what is causing this? Is it the MAGA base that's pushing him some other way, or did he never feel that way in 2017?
You're shaking your head. What?
Well, the Smithsonian museums are named for Mr. Smithson, who was a guy who donated money. And what used to make the Smithsonian so cool was that it wasn't strictly a government entity. It's a public-private, in-betweener sort of thing. And so politicians couldn't get their grubby hands all over it every time. Now, there was drift, of course, because it's kind of in academia. So it got wokey and lefty and did all of that stuff over time because that's what happens over time. I assume this is ultimately resolved when the Smithsonian says, we've had a great idea. We want to erect a 250-foot tall statue of Donald Trump in front of the building in gold, and Trump will say, I think you're getting it. I think you're seeing it. I don't think it's a play, but this is the technique, whether it's UCLA or anybody. You go up, you punch them in the face, you say, we're going to take your stuff, we're going to break your things if you don't do what we want, and eventually somebody says, have I got a deal for you, Mr. President?
Yeah, and even in the White House's or the president's statement, I should say, on this, he invokes what his administration has done in a number of these education institutions. You know, the one thing, maybe a potential worry I could see critics voicing is what kind of precedent does this set? I mean, if this is seen as a political move, when we see a Democrat or a liberal come into office, do we see, the museums shift their content or change their content? And does this change every 4 to 8 years? So I think that's definitely a question that we'll be keeping an eye on.
And I have a quick question. For a Republican Party that largely touted the fact that they got all these these new black voters in this last election, to kind of leave them hanging and to make all of your targeted agenda directly attacking the same communities, like trying to get rid of DEI completely, trying to attack these small part of our history in one museum when there are historic museums all over DC. It's like, why would you attack the same community that you just garnered and touted garnering?
See, I don't think he's attacking it at all. I think what he's doing is he's fulfilling his promises to that community. You're right. He did. He made major gains in the African American community. He made major gains in the Hispanic community, and all of his campaign promises he's following through on. I know that everybody is saying, well, he's just, basically trying to manipulate the Smithsonian to fit his worldview. I think from our perspective, what he's doing is he's course correcting the mistakes that were made over the last 4 years in these institutions. He's pulling it back to where it should be. I mean, all of this is interrelated, whether it's the crime in DC, where he's sending everything in, so that tourists are willing to come here to a great city with wonderful people in the city.
But even in that, he's sending federal troops to the 7th and 8th Ward, where there's mostly people of color, when how to solve that might actually look like community policing and getting police officers that understand the community rather than just seeming as a threat to the community because they're coming in and people are alarmed, but people who don't take a chance on understanding them at all.
I don't think they're a threat to the community. I think we want to see.
Well, stop and frisk didn't work at all, right? So that was a similar example.
Playing, and feeling safe.
School kids should have community programs to get involved
with. We want their education to be the standard it should, so they have a future. They can compete domestically and internationally.
On this issue, the presidential executive order's example of quote-unquote wokeness, the Smithsonian American Art Museum's The Shape of Power, an exhibit representing that societies, including the United States, have used race to establish and maintain systems of power, privilege, and disenfranchisement. Just to give a couple of examples here, I thought, to hit on Chris's point, I was reading about this public-private partnership in the Smithsonian. Did you know there's a board of regents, and it involves the Chief Justice, the Vice President of the United States, 3 sitting senators, and 3 House members. They meet several times a year, and to the point of negotiating maybe what comes next. I don't know how those folks negotiate among themselves and sort of how you figure it out.
The idea of mediating institutions doing their job to be independent and respect. There are 2 legitimate points of view right here at this table.
You just heard it.
We just heard it. Neither point of view is illegitimate. There's a leftward lurch in the academy, but it's also true that people want to pave over the unpleasant parts of American history. Both things can be true. And you're supposed to have institutions the Smithsonian once was the kind of institution that Americans said, that works. And by the way, all the Smithsonian museums are free.
Yes.
And they're great for kids, and they do all this stuff, and you could go see John Bull steam locomotive engine with your 5-year-old and feel good about it. And I hope we don't screw that up.
Last word here.
I think the question I have, I really don't have a statement, but what does this ultimately look like when President Trump, when the administration goes in? Because, I look at something like the civil rights movement, and I think that's an example of how this country is a shining city on a hill, but you can't talk about the civil rights movement without acknowledging slavery and the country's history of racism. So I guess I'm just wondering what the president's, mission is going forward.
They are all free. Now they got to make the parking free, right?
No, don't bring your car. Take the metro, man. We don't need you driving in.
Thank y'all. I appreciate it. Still to come tonight here on the Hill. A big announcement today from the PGA Tour. I was wondering if they were going to talk about that guy right there. I'll tell you why they didn't, but why he's also front and center. And coming up on Elizabeth Vargas Reports, Hurricane Aaron churns in the Atlantic, the very latest, as it skirts up the East Coast. My take, what's trending as well, other side of the break. All right, if you're just getting home, trying to check up on the top stories today, here's some of what's trending right now on thehill.com. This was the big one in this town. The vice president went over to Union Station today, had cheeseburgers, had lunch with the National Guard there, sending a message alongside the Defense Secretary, J.D. Vance. Our top story tonight here on the Hill as well. How about this? This would irk me too. Airlines facing lawsuits over windowless window seats. Probably no fun. And then there's this. Senator Tuberville rips the NFL over male cheerleaders. What the hell are you doing? All I know is this. Football is about to be back, and we are all better for it. To check out those stories and more, all you have to do is scan the QR code on your screen or head on over to thehill.com. All right, time for my take now, and it is clear that golf is one way to try to get in the good graces of President Trump. Just this week, for example, the Ukrainian leader, Vladimir Zelensky, gifted the president a putter from a member in the Ukrainian military.
Again, I want to thank you. Keep swinging. And the putter is beautiful. I'll use it. Every time I sink a putt, I'll be thinking about you. Thank you, Constantine.
Well, how about this today? The PGA Tour just released its schedule for next year, and what's being called the Miami Open will be played at Trump National Doral. The first time since 2016, and really Trump's ventures into politics, that the tour will play a tournament at a Trump course. Now, that was supposed to be the case for the 2022 PGA Championship in Bedminster. But in the aftermath of January 6th, the tour basically screamed "for right" and pulled the event from Trump. Now, President Trump, obviously, he's no stranger to professional golf. In fact, he's tried to bridge the gap between LIV and the tour, a relationship that, at this point, is uncertain what happens from here. Now, in golf, at the end of the round, you add it all up. And here is essentially the scorecard tonight. The PGA Tour giving the commander-in-chief a mulligan, you could say. And all of this really shows the intersection of power, money, and politics on full display. I thank you so much for watching us tonight here on The Hill. How about this for tomorrow? Mike Pence, the former vice president, with me live. See you then.